Hi, everybody. I wanted to do a video for this one because it was one of the things that I was really starting to think about. And I love the interview and talking about the different issues that we have with deeper learning. But one thing that really stood out was this line about how underprivileged or challenged communities could leapfrog, was the quote from there, those kind of like richer student bases, which is intriguing to me. And then almost within 30 seconds talks about resource allocation. So from the idea of like a funding issue, so if it's going to take resource allocation to help with this leapfrog, how will that work? So it was one of those that I put my Board of Education hat on. So I spent 6 years on a Board of Education, two of that Board of Education president. So I saw this idea of like the how funding works in Illinois and how the complete inequities of who gets money, who doesn't, general state aid versus grant money, things like that. So in terms of what is standards based, what is deeper learning, what is a standardized test versus getting feedback from on a scale of 1 to 4, and that's something I'm going to talk about in a later question. So my big question moving forward is in terms of resource allocation, how are we going to fix those inequities where the game is already rigged for some of these students before they can make any changes to it? So I like the idea, I like the optimism of being able to leapfrog based on something that has nothing to do with a test based score and a performance based score. But I still think until the funding problems themselves are fixed, because then in terms of training to shift gears, that takes money, that takes time, that takes effort, and then that takes a collective effort from teachers. And if they don't have the resources, as mentioned in the interview, I don't think that leapfrogging happens. So it's one of those things that I thought out loud, and I was thinking about it from the Board of Education perspective, not even the teacher perspective, which sometimes they should be in line, but sometimes, I butted heads several times with non-education based thinkers on Board of Education. So just something always to put in the back of your mind. Board of Educations want that teacher perspectives, but sometimes they just don't listen. And it's pretty frustrating when I was on a board and I was a teacher, and people didn't see that perspective. So just something to ponder.